Thanks for having me. My name is Katia. I'm a PhD student in experimental social psychology at the University of Sheffield, hopefully soon finished, fingers crossed. And I'm also the co-founder of Prolific, which is a platform that brings people together for research. Before I start, I'd like to ask you, how many of you have ever recruited participants online for research? Wow, so it's a lot, maybe 90% or so. And how many of you have used Prolific before? Okay, that's cool. Right, so hopefully this talk should be useful for everyone else as well. The structure of this talk will be, I'll first briefly introduce Prolific to you, and I'll then talk about some of the key challenges and some solutions when recruiting participants online. And I will also briefly touch upon how to design online studies wisely to achieve high data quality, but I'm not going to say too much on that because Jenny Rod is going to focus on this in the talk after this one. At Prolific, our mission is to make online data collection trustworthy and to connect the public with science. Basically, how it works is that you create your survey or experiment using external survey software such as Gorilla, and then you go to Prolific to prolific.ac to find your target demographics. So we have a pool of participants which you can recruit from, and we have a lot of screeners you can choose from, and all you need to do is pick the screeners. You can then start collecting your data and watch it come in real time. A couple words about our story. So we founded Prolific in April 2014, in the first year of my PhD, because I was having such a hard time finding participants for my research. And at the time, my co-founder Phelim sat down and coded up an initial version of the website. And it was more of a fun side project initially. We didn't think of it as a big company or anything. But we realized that a lot of researchers have the exact same problem that I had, which is finding participants quickly and affordably. Ever since, there have been more than 3,000 researchers around the world who've collected more than 1.5 million complete participant responses via Prolific. Our happy customers include a variety of British institutions and universities and North American ones, and also many others around the world. There are many papers that have validated kind of the platform. One good paper is by Eyal Pear and colleagues called Beyond the Turk, Alternative Platforms for Crowdsourcing Behavioral Research, which I'd recommend to you. Right, let's switch gears and talk about challenges and solutions of online data collection and how Prolific can help here. Traditionally, researchers have collected their data either through panel companies, which tend to be expensive, slow, not very transparent, and not really flexible at all, or undergraduate samples, which tend to be highly biased, as we all know, and many of the speakers have mentioned the weirdness of the samples. Then in 2005, MTurk came along and paved the way for rapid online data collection. And it did so by solving a lot of the logistical problems, things like a payments infrastructure through which you can very easily and quickly compensate participants, and through reputation management where you can approve or reject submissions. And also simply, MTurk provided a critical mass of people who were willing to just sit there and take part in some studies. I think it's pretty clear that online data collection is booming. In the coming years, it's estimated that nearly half of all cognitive science articles will involve online samples. This has been mentioned before. Online data collection is quick and low cost. It allows you to iterate fast between developing theory and generating evidence. And many papers confirm that data collected online is in many cases comparable or equivalent to data from lab studies. There's so many challenges we could talk about, and I've decided to focus on 3 key challenges. The first one is what I'd call unethical practices or slave labor. In many platforms, participants get kicked out of studies without any compensation at all. especially on mTurk, participants often don't hear back from researchers. There's a lack of regulation because mTurk is a very deregulated platform, and there's basically not any mediation helping participants with any issues, right? Rewards are often unfair. Some papers have reported that they can be as low as less than $2 per hour. And this suggests to me that participants' time is not valued or respected enough. And think about it, this really wouldn't happen in lab studies, right? You would always communicate with your participants, make sure they're happy. You would compensate them with a minimum kind of reward per hour. But it is common practice on mTurk, unfortunately. How can Prolific help here? We like to think that we're ethical and low cost, so we don't ever kick participants out of studies, right? If they get access to a study, they will be able to complete it, and reward is essentially guaranteed, provided they complete it diligently. And we also take care in helping to mediate between researchers and participants whenever there is issues, conflicts, participants are unhappy and the researcher is not responding. We will take care of it just to make sure that there's trust in our platform. And we also stipulate a minimum reward of £5 per hour for participants, because we think that's the bare minimum one should be paying if you respect people's time. And we charge 30% for our services, which, as far as I know, is the lowest pricing there is on all platforms. So on mTurk, for example, if you get more than 10 participants, they charge you a 40% commission. And we are GDPR compliant. We take data privacy and security very seriously. So we've been working very hard in the past couple of months to be GDPR compliant, which I think Joe mentioned mTurk basically isn't. Yeah. Right. What can you do as a researcher to make sure that your study is kind of ethical and that you have as high data quality as possible? We think you should definitely reward fairly and promptly. Participants' time is valuable. I've basically made that point already. More broadly, we think that a fair minimum compensation to participants helps maintain a motivated, diverse, and a high-quality participant pool. It also helps if you make your study fun and engaging. Researchers have found that intrinsic motivation can help improve the quality of data submissions. For example, if you frame your research as helping others or helping society. And also make sure to randomize and counterbalance your survey items. This makes your surveys more interesting, especially if they're longitudinal, so you have less repetitiveness. And also it's just good scientific practice to counterbalance. Okay, the key challenge number 2, pre-screening functionality. It's a big one. On most other platforms out there where you can collect data online, there's a very limited set of screeners, and it's often not clear in advance how many participants will be eligible for your study. So yesterday I was playing around with mTurk, and I tried to check, do they have any British participants? And the system just doesn't tell me, but I'm not going to start my study and top up my account with money before I even know what the platform can offer or not. So this is a problem. It's a lack of transparency here. Then there's research to suggest that many Turkers, up to 62%, misrepresent demographics in order to gain access to studies. This is because on mTurk, many researchers try to pre-screen within their study, right? And then they often have to reveal who they're looking for. And if you reveal who you're looking for, it's likely that some participants will try to, pretend that they meet the demographic, whereas they actually don't. You don't have this problem on Prolific because we completely decouple pre-screening from researchers' actual studies. So there's no link and participants won't know what you're looking for. The problem of non-naivety. Basically it's about a variety of participants having become professional survey takers who've been exposed to many paradigms, measures, and tasks before, so they know answers in advance. And then often these tasks might measure memory rather than actual problem solving in the given moment, for example. And one paper found that 10% of the most active Turkers complete 41% of studies on mTurk. And then you'd be surprised, but mTurk gets really pricey. I'm just giving it as one example of an online platform. They charge you up to 50 cents per participant per study, and you can calculate pretty quickly that that starts adding up. On Prolific, we allow for flexible pre-screening. Like I mentioned, screeners are always decoupled from studies, so there's less cheating. All our default screeners, which is about 250, are free of charge. You can just use them. And we also run many tests on our participant pool to try and catch people who try to, cheat the system. What you as a researcher can do, I think it's really important that you frame questions wisely. So instead of asking, let's say, do you play football, yes or no, you should rather ask, which of the following sports do you play? Choose up to 3. And then it's not obvious at all what you're looking for. And this is something we also pay a lot of attention to when designing our pre-screening questions. We really try to make sure that they're as valid and reliable as possible. Right, the final challenge I want to talk about. It's incredibly difficult to find niche, diverse, and representative samples online. You can go to panel companies to find representative samples, but that comes with a huge price tag. It's basically unaffordable for academics. As far as I know, mTurk mainly has US American participants. It's unclear how many participants they have in other countries. I don't think representative samples are possible there. Niche samples are hard to find. And in fact, I don't know how many of you know this, but mTurk's pool is not as big as they claim. Researchers have estimated that the average lab samples from a population of only 7,300 Turkers, not 500,000 as the mTurk's website claims. So again, there's, I think, a bit of a lack of transparency here. We can help by offering a diverse participant pool. We currently have more than 51,000 active participants in OECD countries, which include most European countries, North America, Australia, and New Zealand, and then Chile and Japan as well. And we plan to launch an affordable representative samples feature later this year. Stay tuned. So we hope to make it easy for you as researchers to get representative samples at a low cost. And just a few more words on what you as a researcher can do. Others have mentioned this. Definitely test your study before launching it. Run pilot studies, get feedback from your participants. I cannot emphasize this enough. Data collection is incredibly quick. It could be that within 10 minutes you have your 200 participants, and then you'd have to compensate them because they've already spent their time working on this. And if you have a massive bug in there, that would just be a huge problem for your research. And finally, use attention checks. I'm sure Jenny will mention it, I suspect. They're also called instructional manipulation checks. I'm just going to whiz through this. For example, don't ask participants to watch a video and remember some detail from that video. That's not a good attention check, right? None of us has, perfect memories. It's a bit too harsh. Rather just ask people to tick strongly agree or strongly disagree on a scale. That's a proper kind of pure attention check. If there's one thing I would like you to take away from this talk, is that we at Prolific care about data quality. We want to make data trustworthy and connect the public with science by building an online community where researchers and participants actually trust each other and like taking part in scientific research. Where are we going next? So we have plans to implement various measures to improve data quality further. We're working on a best practice guide, which actually I think answers a question back there about how to do great research online. So we're working on this. It's going to be quite an encompassing, good document, which we'll hope to launch soon. As I mentioned, we're going to have representative samples at some point, and we plan to expand in more countries to have more international samples. We're considering to get into lab experiments and clinical trials, but I'm not sure how easy or difficult this is going to be. Let me know what you think. If you have any input on this, should we be going this way, this direction next, or is there anything else we could be doing that you'd really value? Please do let me know. And to summarize the talk, researchers want to recruit diverse participants quickly and ethically Most existing platforms are unethical, not flexible, and not diverse enough. MTurk has done a great deal to the scientific community, but it's time to move on. We're building Prolific to create kind of, you could say, maybe the online data collection platform of the future, which can address all these challenges I have discussed. Huge thanks to my team of scientific experts and excellent programmers, and thank you very much for your time.